Welcome back to Chat Chit. Round 16 in the books for the 2025 season. We've got our wrap up today. It's the bye rounds finally finished.
Thank God.
Almost every round so far has been affected by byes in some way, and now we get to see all 18 teams playing every round for the rest of the year, with some very tough competition out of those top 9 for only 8 finals places. First, we're going to jump into one of those 9 teams, the Bulldogs, in the game of the round.
Absolutely pissing down here at the turn. Marcus has kicked Jesus! Usain Bolt wouldn't get him now.
The legend becomes immortal.
Well, I think you can comfortably say this was a finals type game. Bulldogs, you could say playing for their season because they need to make top 4. Swans playing for their lives. They almost have to go, or they have to go 8-8 to have a small chance of playing finals now.
Yeah.
But you'd probably consider their season dead. It was 9 points at halftime, 9 points at three-quarter time, 9 points at full time. Loads of lead changes. They were just going goal for goal in that third quarter. It was absolutely ridiculous what guys like Fraser, guys like Heaney did in that one quarter. Bramble had a ridiculous quarter as well. We were there, really disappointed to lose, but it was good to see the Swans playing that sort of footy.
Yeah, with the Swans stars back from injury, I think the whole league knew that going into this round, with Swans having won a couple games in a row, they were the only team outside of that top 9 that has the capability to challenge that top 9, make 2 of them miss out instead of 1. But that looks almost dead and gone. Swans are going to have to be very perfect from here. But the Bulldogs absolutely earned this. From a Bulldogs perspective, they just got it done in the clutch moments, which the Swans weren't able to do. And that's something that the Bulldogs have not always done in recent seasons when it's come to these really important games. But they did it today. On the other hand, the Swans were actually quite dominant around the contested footy, which is usually a weakness, and were ahead in the inside 50s count, but they weren't able to convert in front of goals in the set shots. 4 goals, 10. It's been a story throughout the year.
Well, they were plus 23 in contested possessions, which is massive in today's game, especially against the Dogs, who are rank really high in contested possessions, especially with the midfield they have. But it got to a point where I couldn't even watch. I wasn't watching when the Swans had a set shot. I was just hoping the crowd told me that the ball had gone in. It's a serious problem. We had one more scoring shot than the Dogs in this game today, and there were some really important goals that were missed. Buller had one to kick what would have been his first goal in AFL footy. He ended up kicking it, but from 20 metres out right in front. McLean had that one at the end just to give the Swans a crack in the last 40 seconds. Missed that, hit the post. There are a few others around the ground, but I've completely lost confidence in the set shot kicking, and it's one of the most important things when your key forwards can present, take a mark, go back, kick a goal, because our key forwards currently aren't doing that.
Yeah, it's a real issue in the Swans list, because it doesn't matter how well you play up the ground if you're not going to kick the 6 points. From a credit to the Bulldogs, their midfield, which has been their biggest strength this year, was really quashed. The guys who have been superstars for them, Ed Richards kept to 16 disposals, Matt Kennedy to 15, Libba to 21. Bont didn't have his biggest game at all with 18 disposals, and it was really their runners that stood up. Bramble was arguably best on ground, with Joel Fraser, who was the absolute superstar and was most would say was best on ground. Those two tore the game apart, were as clean as you come. Bailey Dale had another great game, but it was really those runners. To be
honest, well, Dale was he's another top liner, probably could be All-Australian. He had 18 touches in the first half. And then Braden Campbell was sent to him. He was completely tagged out of the game. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in my hit later, the Dogs' sort of second-rate players and how they can really help them win the premiership later this year. But things to look forward to for the Swans. Dogs will be excited they can win a premiership. Darcy really got hold of us early, but I think with the Swans out,
looked like it could have been a career game for Sam Darcy.
Yeah, it looked really dangerous.
The goal from the boundary,
especially with Rampy going down early. We had the Lob Francis tackling each other, which was really entertaining. I was just watching the other side of the ground, and suddenly you hear the fans.
Almost made that my hit for the week.
On half of the ground screaming, and you look over and it's just Lob and Francis wrestling in the goal square, and then it came again, and you just wanted Francis. He had that chance to kick the goal where it was some other. You knew he was going straight over the Lob if he kicked that goal. But yeah, it's sad time to be a Swans fan with the team that we currently have. But you'd assume that they're going to splash for a key forward. There's talk about Jamara maybe making their move, and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It's really easy to present the project at the Swans for a key forward. Look at the chances you're getting.
You're getting Errol Goulden, Braden Campbell, Isaac Heaney, Chad Warner. These are the guys delivering you the ball. That's just about the best service you're going to get in the league. making 2 grand finals in the last 4 years. It's a pretty good case to make to a young key forward to bring them over. They just got to get it done.
100%. We're going to move on straight into the top 5.
Number 5 player of the round for me was Miles Bergman. He's just been consistently getting better and better over the last 3 years, and especially this year. He's really come into the limelight as a full-time midfielder for Port Adelaide. And look, 2 goals, 25, and was as clean as ever. Such a good decision maker and a level head in that Port midfield. But also went off the ground for almost a full quarter after bumping heads with Zach Butters, and was still just about the best player on ground.
You know what he's doing? With contract talks coming up, he is just leveling up his price week after week after week. It's going to be harder and harder for Port to hold on to him. But yeah, he's one of the stars of Port Adelaide now. I had one of his teammates at number 5. I had Georgiades, who we haven't actually talked about in most recent weeks, but he is in some career best form.
Yeah, there are certain aspects of his game where he's just about the best going around. They talk about his first step when he's leading. He has the most marks on lead and the most marks inside 50 in the whole league this year. Or maybe marks inside 50, he might be just behind Hogan.
He's a great kicker goal. He's still a chance at the Coleman medal if he keeps this form up. But it's no easy feat getting the better of Wiedering. But kicking 5 on him, getting them off to a huge start with 2 in the first quarter, I think deserved to be in my top 5.
Yeah, I haven't seen Wiedering look lost in a matchup like he did against Georgiades. Phenomenal player. My number 4 was Brodie Grundy, and he was the run that he's on right now as just a second wind in his career, because there was a time when he was by far the best ruckman in the league in 2018 to 2020, but right now he's back in that sort of form, just dominant around the ground, punching the ball forward 30 metres, just getting clearance after clearance for the Swans, and was a huge reason of why the Swans won the contested possession count by 23 against the best midfield in the comp. So Grundy was enormous. I could have him even higher on this list, but he was amazing.
I had Grundy a little bit higher, which I'll mention a little later. Number 4, I had Jordan Clark in the game that we just watched and just finished. You know what Jordan Clark brings? He brings it both ways. So he's really good defensively. Took 6 intercept marks today, alongside 31 touches at 77% with a goal, 6 score involvements. So he's really important across that Freo half backline, which is, you could argue, is one of their weaknesses in that team. So just being able to go both ways, being really strong defensively, and being able to set up the attack offensively when guys like Sarong and Brayshaw weren't at their best today was pretty important for their win.
I think it's an incredibly important kind of player in today's league. I have him at number 3. Guys like Jordan Clark, a couple other guys like that are Zach Guthrie, Miles Bergman before he moved into this midfield. Guys that can run and create for you while also being an elite lockdown defenders. So Jordan Clark did just about it all today. And I had him at number 3.
I had Joel Frazier at number 3. Second coming of Bontempelli, as we've talked about. I think he's only 3 games of still being eligible for the Rising Star Award, which he would comfortably win if he was still eligible. Kicked 4 massive goals and was absolutely huge when the Dogs' top liners weren't getting it done.
I'll say it now. I had Frazier at number 1. I thought he was the best player of the round. The kid is 19 years old. He's 3 years younger than me, and he just completely dominated my football team. He was simply elite. He scored 4 goals, one of which was pretty standard, and the rest were stunning goals.
On the run from about 50.
Yeah, and I just felt that when he had the ball in his hands, it felt Pendlebury-esque, the composure that he had, just to always find a teammate, always keep the ball for longer and somehow know if he has space. It's blowing my mind week after week that he has the composure and level head that he does at such a young age and such a low level of experience. He's going to be an absolute superstar.
And I'm just trying to find it. I know he was a pick in the 30s or late 30s or 40s in the draft. And to come on like this in his second year, I think second year of footy, is quite ridiculous. And he's going to get a huge pay bump when that contract runs out. My number 2, I thought was clearly best on ground. Obviously, you thought Frazier was Grundy. After the first 10 minutes, he gave a couple free kicks away to Tim English, but he comfortably smashed him. You could say for the rest of the game, and almost did enough to get the Swans home. It was the ability to just almost hack the ball forward when the Dogs wanted to keep it in the contest because they're really strong in there, and Swans were really quick outside the contest. You could see, and there was about a 10-15 minute period in that third quarter where he wasn't actually trying to take it out or tap it down. He was smacking it 10-15 metres forward just to get the ball moving. He had a ridiculous goal. I mean, ruckman shouldn't be able to do that. The one-handed pick up, get down low and snap around the corner. Goal assists as well. There was the one where he took it out the boundary throw in, got the hand pass to Heaney after breaking a tackle. Heaney kicked the goal. But he's comfortably, I think, one of the best ruckmen in the competition, especially his last, he took his last 7 weeks. He's probably the best ruckman in the comp. Oh, Luke Jackson as well.
They've both been unreal, yeah.
But he's putting together some serious form.
Yeah. To lead the game in score involvements while winning the hitouts 43-16, and he's not always a hit-out dominant player. He's the ruckman that's going to get you around the ground, but he just smashed him around the contest, and it's hard to argue that he was best on ground. My number 2 was Daniel Curtin.
I didn't catch that game.
He was just unreal for Adelaide. This is absolutely going to be known as the game that Daniel Curtin broke through as a star. This was not a one-time performance. There's been a couple stats that have shown that he's shining through the wingers in the league. He's been dominant in the contested marks numbers around the league as just a winger for Adelaide. Yeah. He just jumps up at the ball and just seems to pluck everything when there's a one-on-one contest. And he did that today while scoring 2 goals at 26, 11 score involvements, and he had 3 goal assists to go with his 2 goals. Was just phenomenal. It was a sight to see. And yes, it was against Richmond, a better opportunity for him to show his skills, but he is seriously going to be a star.
Well, it's a really tough matchup to get right. He was drafted as a key back. He's put time in the forward line, and there aren't really wingers that are his size that can go with him, so he's sort of that outlet. If you're not really sure, you put it to him, and he's probably going to have the best to it with the winger that's playing on him, and where he can go forward, and at times, in previous games, probably today as well, they had the 4 key forwards. They go really tall, and it seems to be working for them with them being in the top 4 and pushing for a premiership. But as he continues to develop, big young players take a while to develop into big bodies, but he's going to be a serious star. I'll go into my number 1. I had Matt Rowell at number 1. I love players that get around the contest and burst through it and just put their body on the line time after time. 11 tackles, 12 clearances, 9 score involvements, 24 disposals at 75%. Was enormous in getting the Suns off to the start that I think ultimately won the game in the end.
I cut Matt Rowell off my list last second to fit Miles Bergman in because I realised he had about 50% game time and still was best on ground.
Fair enough.
Matt Rowell was absolutely phenomenal. Have him in my Supercoach team, so I watched him very, very closely this game. But yeah, fantastic player to watch.
I like it. We're going to move on to Footy Tinder. Straight into it. Number 1. If Grundy keeps up this form, does he have a chance of being All-Australian?
Swipe left. He's not going to get All-Australian because he wasn't good enough for the first half of the year, and if he was going to keep this up and get into the All-Australian team, he'd want to be on a team in finals to get that sort of acclaim, and there's not going to be that much attention on the Swans for the rest of the year.
I like it. Number 2. Is Sam Darcy the current best forward in the league?
It's between him and Jeremy Cameron. I have such a huge amount of respect for how unreal Jeremy Cameron is as a player, and I'll keep it as Jeremy Cameron for now, so I'll say no. Swipe left.
Does the AFL need to move quickly to add a 20th team after Tasmania is added to avoid the bye each week?
Well, we have a very easy solution for that. If Gold Coast miss finals this year, it's an 18-team league.
Okay, we'll move straight on. Can Adelaide win the premiership this year?
Of course they can, but you're saying, do I give them a decent chance? Yeah. I'll say no. I don't think that they're good enough defensively or good enough in... probably is not good enough defensively to win the league when you compare them to Collingwood and Geelong.
There are a lot of contract talks about Harley Reid and moving back to Melbourne and what he might be worth is the first $2 million player, but is Harley Reid overrated?
Are there talks of him being the first $2 million player?
Potentially, if the salary cap goes where it's expected to go.
He's probably played as one of the most underwhelming number 1 picks we've had in a while, no?
Could argue that on a West Coast team, doesn't get the most publicity. I don't know, he just seems like he's talked about more than what he's actually producing on the field. And he has a game, he almost has a game every 5 weeks that's really good, and then people reference that game, and then he goes through a few quiet weeks like he did in the game yesterday against Collingwood. Didn't have his strongest game.
There are certain stats where he's shining out as the top of the league, which are free kicks against and clangers. And you don't really see him producing other stats when you see the guys that are like top of the clangers, usually it's guys that are most involved in the game in a positive sense as well. And I don't think we see that from Harley Reid. I think it would be a mistake for him to pay him $2 million a year, but he obviously has the talent to be unreal.
I like it. Was that swipe left on all of them? Great. We'll move straight into hits and misses.
My hit for the week, Fremantle have won 6 in a row. They are making a real case that they are in this title fight. Not just in a title fight, but like there's a very thin line right now in this league between contending for the premiership and contending for the top 8. An incredibly fine line. Collingwood is the only team that's locked in. Everyone else can slip out of the 8 just like that. So they're going to have to keep up this form. Just a slight slip up for a couple of games and it's going to be gone. But it's important that you hold on in games where you're not quite at your best. They weren't at their best. St Kilda have been, I think, so poor recently that they were bound to rebound and put together a tough performance, which they did today. But Fremantle was strong enough to hold on. And I think that shows the signs of a team that is going to make the 8 and be the real deal. Going into the year, I've talked throughout the year about how bolstering their forward line through the development of Tracy and Amiss and then adding Shea Bolton to that mix was huge to add to their already solid defence and midfield. So I really think Freo are a dangerous threat to win it all if they get there.
Well, I think today was really important for them because St Kilda absolutely smashed them earlier in the season when they last played. It was Freo's lowest numbers. They broke records on the lack of contested possessions, how much St Kilda smashed them around the ground in every aspect of the game, and to get the better of them after being down for quite a substantial part of the game was quite impressive. And they have a really good record against the top 8.
Yeah, they do.
As well. My hit, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but it's the Bulldogs' second-rate players. So if you look all around the ground in that Swans game, probably besides Darcy in the first quarter, their top liners didn't beat the Swans. It was the layer just below that. Bramble and Fraser were probably the standouts who both... Bramble almost actually appeared in my top 5. Fraser did appear in my top 5. Sanders had one of his best games, and Norton, who struggled for form all season, you'd say won his matchup, was extremely influential. And it's huge for the Dogs come finals, knowing that you have more game winners than just the top liners, those guys in the midfield, the Darcys, the Dales. Guys who can win a final and damage the opponent is really important, especially, I think, it's really important to have a strong bottom 6, and it's when your players can do that and step up and win a game. No one thought Bramble had that in him, especially that third quarter, which was like 15 touches, a few score involvements.
I've never seen that player before. It was unreal.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Couldn't recognise him, and it's going to be huge if they can go on and win the premiership. Yeah,
another guy that will never really get talked about in the media is Bailey Williams, who is such a consistent performer for them. Another type of that can be a tall, strong player on the wing and then also lock down a guy in defence. And he had played both those roles throughout the game and is always a consistent performer. My miss for the week was Carlton. Now, you would have thought that they should have bounced back after a really, really shattering loss to North Melbourne, but they did not bounce back at all. They played at the same level of just not competing in the midfield.
They look resigned.
Yeah, they look resigned to their fate. They look resigned to the fate that the coach is going to get sacked and it's rebuild time. And for a team that has such high aspirations going into the year, it's quite a sad sight to see. Daniel Gorringe with one of his worst forfeits yet. Tough to watch for all audiences. But yeah, Port Adelaide put on a good showing, but like we have to keep in mind that they were awful last week, Port Adelaide. They were beaten relatively comfortably by a Swans side that kicked with the worst accuracy that any team has this year. And then Port and Swans haven't been great. And Port go out and then beat Carlton by 50. It's going to be really a fascinating watch as to what this Carlton rest of the season is, because they're not competing for finals. They're not going to be winning many games. Are they going to be trialling some new things, chucking some guys up forward, down back in the midfield to see who's going to make it through this rebuild and what their roles are going to look like? I think maybe that's going to be the way that they go.
Well, following on from that about the season being over for them, my miss is just the season being completely over for the bottom 9 sides, and we've talked about it a little bit. There's been a lot of talk, though, about making it the top 10 for finals, where teams...
Wildcard round.
Yeah, teams 7 to 10 play off against each other, 7 plays 10, 8 plays 9 to play finals. It keeps more teams interested, and you hopefully avoid the situation that we're currently having. The season would still be alive all the way down to St Kilda in 15th. The Swans are clearly not a bottom half side with the players they have back, and you would not want to face them in the weeks going into finals if they were to finish in that top 10. And I thought that they might bring it in this year because there was a lot of talk at the start of the year that it might be a thing. Based off what's happened this year, you'd think we're going to see it next year. But it's just unfortunate that it's season over for 9 teams.
I think I'd love to see it. So they implemented it in the NBA, and I'll tell you, my team, the Miami Heat, for anyone that follows the NBA, the first couple of years of them having this play-in tournament between 7 to 10 in each conference, no play-in team made it through the first round of playoffs once they got there. So if you made it through the play-in, you got knocked out by the 1 or 2 seed in the first round.
That's fine.
And that's completely fine. It just keeps teams more interested throughout the year. But then Miami suddenly burst through from the... they were 8th seed, get through the play-in tournament. They beat the first seed, then beat the second seed, then beat the 4th seed, and came through the conference. They were the team to make it out of the conference and lost in the finals to the Denver Nuggets. So to have that, like a little aspect of hope. I know it's a different league, except it really showed what this sort of play-in tournament can do, that you can have a team just have a complete fairy tale story. It keeps all those teams that are from 13th to 14th that can still get in touch with 9th and 10th. Keeps their seasons alive, and I like that.
I'd love to see it, and for the teams all the way down to St Kilda and potentially even North Melbourne if they went on a crazy run.
Yeah.
It would just keep them interested, and we're not really sure how the teams are going to front up now that it's probably season over for the 9 of them. Going to move straight on to the Footy Pyramid. We have one out this week. Liberatore is out of the Pyramid. Has had a quiet couple of weeks. Didn't have his greatest game against the Swans yesterday. And there are just players that are in some serious form. Coming into the Pyramid, I put Brodie Grundy in the Pyramid. Another ruckman is being added. That's number 4 in the top 15 for me. You can't ignore his form in the last 6-7 weeks. We base the top 15 players in the Footy Pyramid on their current form, and just for me, he's top 15 players in the league. In the 5th tier, Jordan Dawson holds his spot, Max Holmes holds his spot, McCluggage is going to hold his spot on the bye, and Tristan Sherry is going to move down a tier. Yep. Wasn't bad at all, it's just other players are having better games than him. Going into the 4th tier, Gawn's going to move down a tier as well. Also didn't have his best game. Went through a really good run of form, but maybe just his age is catching up with him. He can't continue to carry Melbourne along with him. Darcy's going to move up a tier. I know he was quiet in the second half, but it's just what he can do around the ground. Kicked 3 goals. Could have been a lot more. And yeah, he's going to move up a tier for me. Jeremy Cameron's going to hold his spot on the bye, and Luke Jackson's going to move up another tier. Going into the 3rd tier, Noah Anderson is going to hold his spots. Nick Dacus is going to move up a tier, just gets so much attention every week and continues to be able to deal with it. Another massive stat line for him. And Bailey Smith is going to move down on the bye, just because I think there's a player that deserves to move up that had a really good game. Into the 2nd tier, Ed Richards is going to hold his spot. Didn't have his greatest game, but he's been one of the best players across the entire season. And Isaac Heaney is going to move back into the 2nd tier. 6 touches and a goal in the first half, barely sighted, then almost won the game for the Swans.
4 goals straight in the 3rd quarter. This man ended up with 5 goals, best on ground for the Swans outside of Grundy. But he was the last man on the field to touch the ball. He was the last man on the field to get a disposal.
That's a great stat.
Yeah.
And moving on to the top in his 250th, Marcus Bontempelli stays on top.
Fair enough. Now moving on to the better segment, the power rankings. The power rankings from last week are right here. And I'm just going to run through this one very quickly because the teams sort of played as they're sitting in the power rankings this week. You have the teams at the bottom here, none of them impressed.
Yeah.
There were no real upsets this week, I think it's fair to say, in the whole round. The only team that really shot up was Port Adelaide, who I had quite low, and they've jumped ahead of Melbourne and Carlton.
Yeah.
And then Sydney, I'm keeping on top of them because they dominated Port last week, and bad kicking is bad footy. I understand, guys, except the Swans are pretty much everything outside of that is pretty elite at the moment.
Yeah.
And then the top 9, all winning their games, apart from those that had the bye, and just shows like how strong a top 9 we have, and it's going to be insane to watch in finals time. You're going to have teams like Brisbane, Geelong, absolute powerhouses that will probably be sitting outside the top 4. So I can't wait for finals time, and it's going to be incredibly sad for whichever of these 9 teams misses out on finals.
I think it's one of the closest top 8s or top 9s you've ever had where at this point in the season, 9th is a couple games away from the top 4. And the team sitting in 2nd can still comfortably miss the 8th. So I think that's quite exciting. Obviously, with the 9 teams probably finished for the season.
Also, one thing I want to say is we're talking about that it's a bit unfortunate that there are 9 teams out of it at this point. The good thing is this is the first season like this in a while.
Yeah.
Recent years, it's been there are 15 teams that can make it.
I
until
remember the
rounds to go.
podcast last year. We were like, there's still down to 14th at this point in the season can comfortably make the 8.
Yeah. So. Not a huge complaint. It's a bit unfortunate for this season, but at the same time, there's the positive that we have so many teams that are absolute class and putting it in, week out, not faltering against the weaker teams in the league, and you've got to respect that.
Yeah, let us know what you think of the podcast, and we'll see you all on the next one.